So we'll begin with a brief grounding meditation. If you have anything in your lap or something to write or take notes with, you can set that down for now and just get comfortable, whether that's sitting in a chair or lying on the ground, and take a deep cleansing breath. Just have the intention of slowing down. Many of us have been going all day, having conversations or getting our families organized, and this is a time to just slow everything down. And as you begin to slow down, have a sense of calling your energy back to yourself. Throughout the day, we leave pockets of ourselves in conversations and emails at stores. Just have the intention of calling your energy back to yourself. And if you find you're engaged in any mental conversations with anyone, just hang it up, end the talk, and just set it aside for right now. If this feels like an effort for you, have the sense of your body acting as a magnet and just drawing your energy back to yourself. And after you have a sense of feeling more present with yourself, you can notice your senses are more alert, that you have more awareness about your body. Sometimes we notice an ache that we didn't know we had before because we were distracted. Have a sense of taking a few cleansing breaths and just releasing any tension, anything in your neck, your shoulder, your hands, your waist. Just have a sense of releasing it, just melting easily, effortlessly, just dropping away. And as we clear our space and we're more present with ourselves, have a sense of the density of our body. Have the sense of gravity drawing our bodies to the earth. Have a sense of being connected to the earth. I like to look at grounding to the sort of our plugging in. It's where we get rejuvenated. We release whatever we don't need that gets recycled. It's just our place to connect, to receive grounding, to be anchored, and to also give appreciation for that connection and that anchor. If you're having trouble feeling anchored into the earth, you can visualize a golden anchor dropping down off of your waist, really plugging you in. And affirming our grounding connection to the earth and our presence with ourselves. Put your attention on your mind, on your head, and notice where your attention is. Sometimes it's in the forefront, sometimes we're out in front of ourselves. And just have a sense of dropping further back, settling into a deeper place within our head. Have a sense of rocking back, moving from our analytical processing and dropping back as if you're reclining in a lazy boy chair. Just recline back and drop into a deeper place. And when we're centered and we're grounded and we move into this deeper place, we're open to receive. We can receive messages all the time, but it's from this place that we can really take it in and really ground it into present time and in this present moment with ourselves. And through this point, we can receive our higher knowing, and it's not filtered through our analytical or rational, pragmatic process, but it's just a higher knowing. It's a knowing sense. It's our connection with our intuition within us, our inner guidance. And having a sense of just drawing in that energy, a higher life force energy that magnifies abundance, radiance, our brightness, and set your intention to receive whatever message or knowing or affirmation that we need to affirm that we will receive it now. And without analyzing it or identifying what the solution is, just have a sense of drawing in exactly what it is. And affirm the abundance that's in and around us. Affirm that everything that we need to take the next step on our path or to feel fulfilled in this moment, that we have access to it all from this place. And that in every moment we have exactly what we need. And in every moment we are cared for, we are held, and we are carried forward. And feeling fulfilled and satisfied in this moment, we'll move into this evening's call with Marc.
Thank you, Tina. I always get so relaxed when you begin these things that sometimes I think the call isn't necessary. The rest of the call isn't necessary at all. You said everything that needs to be said. That's all we need to do is just relax and realize it is an abundant universe in spite of what the media says. The media loves to feed on fear, and so many people are feeling fearful about the situation, and yet we somehow seem to muddle through, don't we? And we somehow seem to get just enough and get what we really need. So somewhere along the line I realized you might as well really go for your highest dream and just really go for it. And it'll all work out somehow or other. This is New Year's. It's a time when nights are the longest, and now they're starting to get a little shorter every night as energy builds. But it is a time to relax and rejuvenate and rest. These long winter nights, let yourself have some long nights of sleep if you possibly can. Take some time to relax and rejuvenate. And New Year's, of course, is the best time for New Year's resolutions. And the phrase has been used so much, it's almost a joke with a lot of people. New Year's resolution, because so many of them fail. And I talked in my email somewhat about that. But I think it's a wonderful time to reflect on your life and to look ahead for this year and to make one clear goal. The power of one clear goal is what I discovered. I discovered it the day I turned 30. It took me 5 years to manifest that goal, but I discovered the value of one simple, clear goal. Over and over and over, I see confirmation of it. I see confirmation every day of what I know to be true. Today was no different. I got this wonderful book in as a submission. It was published in Australia called The Magician's something. It's like Magician's Handbook or something, but that wasn't exactly it. But it dared to use the word magician in the title, which I know a lot of Christians are afraid of that concept. But I sometimes use it, and I say, in a way, what I learned is a course in magic, you could say. Real, effective magic. And you become a magician. We published a book all about money, and by Deborah, what's her name? I forget her name. But she talks about becoming a money magician. A money magician. And she isn't afraid of that word either. And this book that I saw today, I think we might publish it. Well, I loved what I read. I'll have to read more. But it started off with this guy meeting this brilliant golf instructor. And he said every other golf instructor he had always had him hit a few balls and then started correcting his stance and his body, blah, 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 blah. This golf instructor said, no. See, the first thing he did was give him a rock and said, throw this rock at that tree about 30 yards away. Well, he could do that. As a kid, he grew up throwing a lot of rocks. And he said, what were you thinking when you threw that rock? Were you thinking about how you're throwing or your stance? He said, no. I was just seeing that tree and thinking, I want to hit that tree. That's the goal. And he said, it's the same in golf. Don't worry about your stance or your swing. Focus on where you want that ball to go. Focus on your goal. And then the book moved into all these people who'd been influenced by this golf teacher in their various businesses. And he had this long conversation with a guy that, and I guess this is a true story or based on it, but a good friend of his is a commodities futures trader. Well, that's a very difficult occupation because you're attempting to forecast where these various commodities, various things, like pork bellies and corn and all these things, what they will be priced at in the future. And there's a million theories. It's like the stock market. There's a million theories about what affects it, and there's almost infinite number of variables, and many, many people that play in those realms end up losing a lot of money. Well, this guy was incredibly successful, and he said it's what he learned from that golfer. He just keeps his eye on the goal. He clearly knows what his goal is for the month, for the year. He clearly knows his goal, and that is what influences actions. And I almost have this image of your powerful subconscious mind that knows no limits. Once you dare to give it a clear, expansive goal, your subconscious mind just assumes, oh, sure, you can do that. No problem. And then starts working backwards, showing you what you need to accomplish to reach that goal. I really have a feeling that's the way it works. And it is almost magical. Maybe it is magical. Maybe it is, you could call it magical creation. But in the same way you can say anything that's created has been magical. This whole universe is a magical creation as far as I'm concerned. And we are not only magical creations, but we're able, being part of the universe, to create something out of nothing. And we do it every day. And we can take the same tools that we use to create, say, lunch tomorrow, and we can use those same tools to create a far more abundant future for ourselves. That's exactly what I've done. This is a wonderful time. You have the power of the creation of this earth behind you in January as all these seeds are germinating under the soil. And there are these long, restful nights. In that time, then, you germinate your idea and you make a very clear goal. Make a clear goal for this year, 2009. Where do you want to be at January 1st, 2010? What do you want to do and be and have in the forthcoming year? Get very clear on that and go for it. I'm sitting here in Kristen's office, who works for Regina's in my office, so I moved into this office, and I noticed she's got a big red bumper sticker on her bulletin board saying, "Failure is impossible." I love that. I remember so much thinking that through my 20s, everything was sand through my hand. I wasn't learning anything. I wasn't getting anything. It was the day I turned 30 that I made this very expansive goal to have a very successful publishing company and to write books and to record music and to have a big white home on a hill in Marin County, California. I had a little slum apartment in Oakland. And I made what seemed like this very expansive series of goals. And as soon as I made it and started taking the first little tentative steps toward that goal, that whole image shifted of sand through my hand, and suddenly the image became, gee, I have learned a lot in my 30 years, a lot that has really shown me what I need to do next. In fact, it slowly dawned on me, I knew everything I need to know. That took me a while. That took me about 5 years. Because for the first 5 years of my business, I had this feeling, well, I haven't really learned enough. I really need to partner with somebody that knows more than I do, and that person never came along. And then I finally realized I have learned everything I need to know. I worked in my early 20s for one of the world's worst bosses, and he taught me exactly what not to do. And I remember having this fantasy. I think it was the first intimations of my dream in my early 20s, because I remember just thinking to myself, gee, I know how to create a successful business because all I need to do is the opposite of what this guy did. Because he was so bad, he was such a terrible manager that I remember thinking, in just about every area, if I do the opposite of what he did, I could really create a wonderful, successful business. So he taught me a tremendous amount. He taught me what not to do. He showed me the results of being very stingy and even greedy and angry and. It goes on and on. He showed me what not to do. And as soon as I got clearly focused on a goal, constantly, every day, there would be pointers. Like that book today is just another pointer confirming with all these different stories what I discovered to be true. And one thing that is true, failure is impossible unless you quit. Quitting is the only failure. Someone else said that. So go for your dreams. Go for your dreams. And don't let those doubts and failures overwhelm you. That's the only thing that is in our way. It's our own doubts and failures. So many people now are so fearful about the economic situation and, oh, how long will all this last? And it really does remind me of Chicken Little going around saying, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. Once you get in that fearful mode, the decisions you make are not at all the best decisions. By far the best decisions are made when you relax, kick back, let go of all that fear and anxiety, get very clear on that goal of yours, and then ask yourself how you can possibly take the next steps you need to take to achieve that goal. Your subconscious mind will tell you. Your subconscious mind is limitless. I keep saying, and I'll just keep repeating, I know I often repeat myself, but looking at myself, I needed to hear things many, many, many times before they finally sunk in. I'll never forget this woman that came up to me after a talk and said, Mark, bottom line, can anybody succeed? Anybody? And I could just hear her thoughts. Even me, with all my problems. She was a middle-aged woman. She looked stressed out. I thought for just a second, and I said, absolutely. Anybody can succeed. Absolutely. Unless they sabotage themselves. Our only problem is our own mind. That's the only problem we have. Our only problem is the doubts and fears that keep going through our mind. They have the power to completely sabotage our greatest dream and to tell us, oh, it's really difficult. In fact, very few people succeed. It's hard. And this is such a hard time. I mean, look at the media. You flip on the TV or flip on the radio in your car or look at a newspaper. A few weeks ago, the Chronicle had a headline that just cracked me up. In great big 24-point type, it said, financial crisis. That was flush left. And then a big banner across the page of about inch and a half type, as big as it could be to fit across the page. It said fiscal crisis. And then it said, in big letters, financial Armageddon. I thought, Armageddon? Doesn't that mean the end of the world? And I could just see, I'd worked in newspapers, I could just see the office, whoever came up with that headline, they were all saying, oh yeah, that's great, that's a great headline. Armageddon, that's even better than crisis. The media loves crisis. It sells newspapers. They love this financial meltdown. They love, mass shootings at a school. They love the destruction of the World Trade Center. I mean, the media, they were salivating. I couldn't even watch TV. I could just see the people on the scene there. I could just get into their thoughts, and they were thinking, this is Pulitzer Prize, Pulitzer Prize. This is such a great disaster that, boy, they're going to remember me for this one. I'm on national TV. And that's the media, and we're really affected by the media. We're affected by this barrage of fear. And then it's broken up with all these ads. And every ad, almost all the ads, have the same theme. The theme is, you're not enough. You don't have it together. You don't have what it takes because you don't have this product. you need this product, so that the ads first create a problem that you're not enough, and then give you the solution. Oh, you'll be happy and ecstatic if you only use our product. That brilliant book, The Hidden Persuaders in the 50s, is still equally as powerful today. I think it was Vance Packard, The Hidden Persuaders or something, basically showing the psychology and the money that goes into all this advertising to persuade you that you need to spend money on this product because your life isn't enough and you aren't enough. You aren't healthy enough. You aren't smart enough. You're not good looking enough. You're not whatever you fill in the phrase. You're not enough. And the media just loves that, and we're barraged by that. So what do we do about that? What do we do about that? We realize that that's what's going on. And then we take time to kick back. And New Year's is a wonderful time. This is a wonderful time to do it. We look at our lives and we find that wellspring of inspiration and truth within us, or from some other source, a talk like this, or the right book, or the right whatever form you get this information, can completely transform your life. For me, it's all very simple, and it has to be simple for my conscious mind. The whole process is daring to go for your dreams. Really dare to go for it, and go for it all. Don't say, okay, well, I really want to do 6 things, but really, to be realistic, I just need to focus on one of them because that's realistic and sensible. I say, no, go for it all. Go for everything. You'll be guided as to which ones will really manifest for you. But our subconscious knows no limits. Go for your dreams. And then deal with all of the stuff that comes up that would undermine your dreams. That's the important work. The important work happens not when you're really inspired and going for your dreams. The important work happens when you're frustrated, when you're overwhelmed, when you feel anxiety, when your energy is really low. That's the important work. Because then you can really look at all those limiting beliefs. What are you telling yourselves at those times? That's the essential work. Are you saying, it's all such a struggle? Oh, it's a struggle. Right now, it's a crisis. Oh, it's an economic meltdown. Oh, people are losing their jobs, so nobody's buying anything. So everybody's cutting back, and so more people are losing their jobs. People are only buying their essentials, they were saying on the radio. Even Walmart sales aren't as gigantic as predicted because people aren't buying that impulse item anymore. They're only buying what's essential. Well, remember, in every adversity is an equal or greater opportunity. That's what Napoleon Hill said. Within every problem, in the problem itself, is an opportunity or a benefit. That was actually Napoleon Hill's words. Within every adversity is an equal or greater benefit. And I say within every problem is an opportunity. I think it's great that people are learning to live within their means. I think when we look back at the last 2-3 years, there was a big bubble based on real estate shooting up, pricing a lot of people out of the market. That was a disadvantage. But those that were in the market, they could refinance, get all this cash. They walk into their Walmart or Costco or their more upscale stores with all this cash, and they're spending on all kinds of things they don't need. The whole economy is driven by consumption. I heard in the end of 2007, the statistic that Americans spent more than they made in 2007. The savings rate was negative. And that was one of those little indicators to me, one of those little red flags saying, this can't continue. This has got to change. So where the media sees this huge crisis and financial Armageddon in the fact that home prices have fallen dramatically in many parts of the country. I see opportunity. I think it's great that home prices have fallen, for instance. Housing is now getting affordable again for a person with a regular job. Housing should be affordable for people with regular jobs. Well, okay, people losing their job, that's certainly a crisis. Yes, that's a crisis for a person that loses their job, but it's also an opportunity. More entrepreneurial things get going in so-called economic crises than other times because people are forced to go into business for themselves because they can't find a job elsewhere. In the Great Depression, a whole lot of companies started. Companies we're very familiar with today, like General Electric, lots of huge companies now. In the recession of the late 70s, that's when Apple started. That's when Microsoft started. That's when the World Library started. I was a poverty case at a time. I didn't know it was a recession because I had my own personal depression, regardless of whether the world was booming or busting. But that's when I started my company. I didn't know it was a recession. But for every adversity is an equal or greater benefit. That is an absolute truth. If we but see it. How do we see it? We ask ourselves, what can the benefit possibly be in losing my job? We ask ourselves, what opportunities do I have? I mean, I can't tell you, but your own subconscious will tell you if you ask that question. I was on the verge of bankruptcy at 35, and that's when I heard that phrase, within every adversity is an equal or greater benefit. Somebody later told me it was Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich, and that the phrase was actually within every adversity is the seed to an equal or greater benefit. To me, it's the same thing. Same thing. That changed my life. I started acknowledging my financial mess, that I was on the verge of bankruptcy. I knew what the problem was. But I started asking, what opportunities are there here? What benefits? Even what gifts? Later on I read the Bhagavad Gita, 5,000 years old, which shows you there's nothing new in this. And this phrase jumped out at me from there. The phrase is, even in the knocks of life we can find great gifts. Even in the knocks of life, there are great gifts. I heard a guy saying, well, he lost his job, but he rediscovered his family. He found what's important in life. He'd been completely obsessed with his work to the point that he missed his children growing up. He lost his job. Suddenly, he was able to be there for his children. That was a wonderful gift in a situation. And years from now, hopefully years from now, when he's on his deathbed looking back, he's going to see that that gift of being with your family is far more important than the income he lost. And somehow it'll all work out for him, especially with that attitude. So the process is really looking at our fears. I'm not in denial of fear. Fear happens. All this stuff goes through our mind. All of it is what it is, and we don't deny it at all. But we acknowledge that these beliefs are limiting beliefs. These fears are not supporting us, and we can change these beliefs. We can only think one thought at a time. That's something that really struck me once. We're only capable of thinking one thought at a time. My son, with the absolute confidence of an 8-year-old, now he just turned 11, but he was about 8 when we had this discussion. He said, no, I can think two things at one time. I can do two things at one time. And I said, if you really analyze it, you can't. Your you're able to switch from one thought to another extraordinarily fast. And yes, you can do two things at a time, or three or four. But at any given nanosecond, you're only thinking one thought. We can only think one thought at a time. So if we become aware of what our dominant thinking is, and if it's not serving us, aware that we can change our dominant thinking. We don't have to get rid of all our fears or all our anxieties at all. Just the dominant ones. We look at our beliefs. Do we believe it's really basically a struggle? I met this homeless guy on a corner. I gave him a couple of bills that I had in my pocket, which made his day. And I said to him, I hope you can find a house. And he said, oh, it's so hard. Every step I take forward, I take 3 back. For every step forward, I go 3 back. And the light turned green, and I just sighed and said, God bless you, brother. But I thought, if I need an hour with him, actually, it's probably hopeless with those kind of limiting beliefs, where the first 2 things out of his mouth were, of course, completely negative and limiting. It's so hard. Just affirming that, it's so hard. Keep affirming, oh, it's hard, life is hard, and your subconscious mind will say, yes, boy, it's hard. I'll show you how hard it is. It's harder than you think. I really think that's kind of the process. If you believe life is a struggle, it sure is. I saw a guy with a T-shirt in Berkeley in big block letters saying, life is a bitch and then you die. Well, that's actually a great translation of Buddha's first truth. But fortunately, Buddha had 3 other great truths that showed us that suffering is not necessary. Yes, life is a bitch, to translate Buddha's first truth. But suffering is optional. We may feel physical pains at times if we get hurt, but emotional suffering is completely optional and is up to us. We choose it. We choose it through these deeply held beliefs about the nature of life. So it's good, especially this time of year, it's good to really honestly look at our beliefs. Do we believe life is a struggle? Do we believe that it has to be stressful? I heard a radio ad saying, in your stressful day. And I said to the radio, I'm not having a stressful day. I'm having a very relaxed day. I was heading in the office, but it was 1:30 in the afternoon, and I had no time I had to be in the office. I stopped on the way, had a coffee, and hung out and chatted with people. I wasn't having a stressful day. So I talked back to the radio because they're assuming my day is stressful and your day is stressful. The media assumes that. Many people equate success with stress, and that's why they don't want to be successful, because they think it'll mean even more stress in their lives. Well, no, I don't choose to believe that. I choose to believe I can succeed brilliantly in an easy and relaxed manner, in a healthy and positive way. And I've repeated those words to myself thousands of times. When I was a total struggling poverty case on the edge of bankruptcy, I started telling myself, I really got aware that I was telling myself, I'm a fool with money, I'm out of control. I just can't handle money. That was my belief. It's all such a struggle. It's all there's so much anxiety and struggle. I can't handle this. That's what I was telling myself. Once I realized that, I started saying, cancel, when those thoughts would come up. And I started telling myself, when I was $35,000 in credit card debt, or $65,000 it was, in the early 80s. So in today's dollars, that's, $150,000 at least, I'm sure, in credit card debt. And my whole company was on the verge of bankruptcy. At that time, I realized, I believed I was a fool with money and I didn't understand money and I was out of control. That's why I'd created this mess. So I started telling myself, I'm sensible and in control of my finances. I am creating total financial success in an easy and relaxed manner, in a healthy and positive way. In spite of the reality of my situation, which was deep in credit card debt, not even having enough income to pay off the minimums of the cards, and in our publishing company, our distributor hadn't paid us in 6 months and collapsed into bankruptcy. That was my financial reality. It was a mess. It was a fiscal crisis. It was close to financial Armageddon for my company, anyway. And what was I saying to myself? I am sensible and in control of my finances. I am creating total financial success in an easy and relaxed manner, in a healthy and positive way. I found those words so far powerful because they led me to the next thought. I got to make a plan. I got to make a plan to get out of this mess. Okay, what do I do? And the steps became obvious. Get on the phone and get another distributor who will pay you on time. Oh, okay. That was an obvious step. I got another distributor. My current distributor that hadn't paid us in 6 months called me and threatened a lawsuit saying, we have a contract with you. You can't leave us. I said, you're going bankrupt and you haven't paid us in 6 months. That's breach of contract. I have to do this. I need to take care of my company because I can't help you guys out. And so the steps became clear as soon as I turned my thinking around. And I started telling myself I was sensible and in control of my finances, even though anyone looking at the situation would say, no, you aren't. You obviously aren't. But that right affirmation is so powerful. It overcomes those old limiting beliefs. I really believed I didn't understand money. I was incapable of making money. And even if I did, I'd blow it. That's why my financial situation was chaos. So I started saying, I'm sensible and in control of my finances. Changed my life. So find those things that really support you. When you find yourself thinking, it's so hard, just go cancel. I am now living the life of my dreams in an easy and relaxed manner, in a healthy and positive way. Keep telling yourself that. Keep focusing on that goal and say, I am now moving toward that goal. I am now creating that goal. I am now being successful doing what I love. And just simply take one sheet of paper and make a plan. There's something so powerful in a written plan with your goal at the top. Your subconscious mind is limitless. Limitless. Unless we block it with our own fears. This is hard. This is stressful. This is not working. So I always say the same thing. Just go for it. Go for your dreams. You'll never, ever regret it. And I love to finish with that quote of Thoreau. Of course, you build your castles in the air. That's where they should be. Build them. Dream. Build them in the air. Then you build the foundations under them. Take a piece of paper and say, okay, how can I get from here to there? What steps do I need to take? And then the steps become obvious. And they're not all that complicated, and they're not all that hard to take. You just take one small step, and then another, and then another. Even if you don't know how to get there at all, you can just see that first step in front of you and just take that first step. And then keep asking yourself, how can I achieve this goal? I am now creating this goal. Show me how to get there. So I wish you all a great year, and in December 2009, let's look back and see how far we've come. And I know some of you will take an amazing quantum leap this year if that's your dream and your focus. All right. I could open it up to some questions.
Also, just a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question, just to press *6 to unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Hello, Mark.
Hello.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you this question last week, but that's why I came back. One of the things that you said was, doing the things that we actually love, right? I mean,
yes.
So basically, I'm kind of in the process of changing my major, and that's one of the areas that I have kind of struggled in the past. It's actually figuring that out. How do we? I mean, if we're not really sure, because I have so many different interests, I'm not really sure if I'm really focusing on my real passion here. So do you have any tips on how do we get clear on that process?
Yeah, and it's a very common situation because you have so many interests. But do keep asking yourself that. Oprah Winfrey talked about that. She said, if you don't know what your passion really is, the most important thing you can do is find out. And you may have several different passions. I certainly do. And what I found in terms of my career was I went for all of them. And then I remember even thinking, I'm going to try like half a dozen different careers, and I think one or two of them will work out, because it included writing books and publishing books and recording music and a record company and speaking, and there were probably several other things at the beginning there that have all fallen away. But the ones that started working then, that's what I ended up focusing more on. But I still have 4 or 5 very different things going. So I remember Warren Buffett said, find what you do for nothing. He even said he went after college. He went to the company he really wanted to work for and said he'd work for them for nothing. See, he targeted what he wanted to do, and they weren't hiring. So he said, I'll work for you for nothing. I'll do anything for nothing. And he says the business owner said, that's paying you too much. That's what he said. I don't know if that's true. But he said the same thing I always say. He said, find what you love to do. Find what just makes you want to get up every day and get to it.
But what if you're not sure about it? I mean, what if you haven't discovered that thing yet?
Yeah. Well, how old are you?
Well, I mean, I'm 34 right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm old enough to know it, but.
Well, no, I've had these conversations with people in their 40s, 50s. I've had people in their 50s saying they didn't know what they wanted to do when they grew up. It was an exact quote. So it's very common. But I would sit down. This is important. Maybe, give some time to it. Maybe even go on some kind of retreat or like a vision quest of your own design. But definitely, for me, just the exercise of doing an ideal scene that I talk about in all my books, just take a piece of paper and write ideal scene and imagine 5 years have passed. So now it's 2014, and everything has gone as well as you could imagine. What would your life look like? And you might find you're doing several things, but what are they? And what's really working?
Right, because I do know that I want to create, one of your dreams is, creating a business, and I also want to create a business, but I don't know exactly what kind of business I want to create. So. Mm-hmm. And I also like the same things that you like. I mean, you said writing books. I do. I know I enjoy. I would love to be, have a best-selling book.
Mm-hmm.
And I like writing also. So.
Great. Well, that's a wonderful goal. We did publish a great book called Work with Passion by this career consultant who she kind of specializes in helping people find their passion. I remember one of her stories, this woman was in the corporate world and frustrated, and first she has people write their autobiographies, and she says half of her clients realize when they write their autobiographies what they're passionate about, because as children we're always passionate. Children know what they want to be when they grow up, and it changes all the time, and that's fine. Hopefully, you'll live a long life, and your career could certainly go through many changes. But I remember this other woman she talked about said, she'd written her autobiography and still didn't know it. And Nancy Anderson, the woman that wrote the book, asked her, "What do you do in your spare time?" She said, "Well, I'm kind of embarrassed to tell you." And Nancy said, "Come on." She said, "I clean my garage and my closets and organize. I have the most organized garage and closets in Northern California." And Nancy said, "There's your passion." Your eyes just lit up as you said that. There's your passion. And she formed a business. She said, you could create a business doing that. The woman said, "Really?" And she formed a company cleaning up people's garages and closets and organizing. And she ended up having all these employees and being very successful. So, yeah, what do you love to do, for hobbies? What do you do in your spare time? What do you dream of doing? Another one is, who are you envious of? I realized this one day. When you're envious of someone else's success that you hear about, that could be that you have the capability of being successful there and you aren't doing it. That to me was a wake-up call because I realized I'm not envious of other great business successes, like Rupert Murdoch or Warren Buffett or Ted Turner. I'm not envious when I hear stories of them, but when I hear about like the success Elton John has achieved, or some writers. Harry Potter. That's every writer's dream, creating a Harry Potter. That shows me, okay, I have a real passion for books and music that I need to continue focusing on.
Yeah, thank you, Marc.
Yeah, just go for it. Go for your greatest dream. Don't get all realistic, and don't think as your parents want you to think, what you need to do for security or anything. Start with your greatest dream. If you could do anything, what would that be? I've known people who wanted to be famous actors, and they didn't make it, but along the way they stumbled into other opportunities that ended up working for them that they loved. One guy I knew, and he was a very practical, grounded guy, and he wanted to be an actor, and he went to Broadway, and he gave it a shot, and he did some modeling, and he had a few things happen, but it didn't work out for him. But he found he really enjoyed and ended up managing stars' money. He managed the different accounts for different Broadway and film stars and music stars that he met while he was going for it as an actor. So he ended up developing a career that he really loved. So it changed from his greatest dream because he didn't become a movie star. But he did find something he really loved to do, and he ended up hanging out with movie stars. So go for it, whatever it is. Go for maybe the most unrealistic thing first, and work backwards from there and see what happens. You'll never regret it. I guarantee you that.
I have a question.
Yes, who's this?
This is Hazel.
Hi, Hazel.
Hi, Marc. How do I get rid of the critical voices in my head? For example, in the past, I shared my dreams with close friends, and some of them laughed at me.
Yes.
And I thought that I had dealt with it and moved on, but once in a while, like when I'm in the middle of a fantasy about dreaming about my ideal scene, where I dream about my some of the spiritual experiences I would like to have.
Yes.
I remember a friend of mine saying to me, "Ha, who do you think you are? that is so arrogant for you to think that you
Right.
can experience that. And even though I have really decided to forgive her.
Right.
I'm really determined to forgive her and let it go.
Good. She's just doing the best she can in trying to get
Exactly. I totally realized that.
Yeah.
That she was just being human.
Mm-hmm.
But then, in the middle of my fantasies and about what I want for the future and writing down the ideal scene, the same tape keeps playing over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's like the thought thinks me. I don't really.
Right.
Although I choose to let go of the thought and the hurt, it's like it runs through me involuntarily.
Yeah, yeah. That's a really good question. And it really gets down to what's essential and important in all this. You never get rid of that critical thought, and don't even try.
Okay.
The only thing you can do with the inner critic is make an ally of it, and realize that there is a great place for that inner critic.
Mm-hmm.
That inner critic is very concerned about you, just as your friend was. Your friend was afraid for you. She has much more fear than you do. Your dream brought up her fear. And so she's really trying to protect you from failure. Mm-hmm. Although there is no failure. People fear failure. And it's their own fears. I learned very early on not to share my dreams with all kinds of people, including my own family, especially my parents. When I told my dad I was going to start a business, his first response was, 80% of businesses fail in their first 2 years. That was his first response. And my first thought was, this guy I can't share my dreams with. I have to go do it, and then he'll see it. But I did realize I had a lot of friends and family that they mirrored my own doubts and fears and expressed, too, what I'd been thinking myself. We all have an inner critic. There's a good use for that inner critic. That inner critic, once you really get clear on your dream and go for your dream, your critic can help you avoid a lot of mistakes. It's just like the writing process, dealing with that inner critic. When you sit down to write, you have to tell that inner critic, go away. Take a break. I'm dealing with a whole other voice here. I'm dealing with my dreamer. Let my dreamer dream. Let my visionary envision. Let me create my castles in the air. I'll bring you in when I get to the point of creating the foundation. But at first, I've got to just let another voice go. Like Marcia Wieder, who talks about dreamers, says, we have, she sees just like 3 or 4 dominant voices in her head, and there's the dreamer and visionary. Then there's the critic and realist. And we have these different personalities, even. You could call them sub-personalities, some people do. But we do have to just say to that inner critic, step aside for now. I'm just going to deal with my dreamer, and I'm brainstorming here. I'm building castles in the air. Or I'm writing, if you're writing. And then you write, and then you dream. You write your ideal scene. You dare to dream. Then you invite the inner critic back in as an editor, like in writing. There's a great use of an inner critic, editing. My inner critic loves to edit. I have to put him aside till I write a whole chunk. Then I bring him there. And, that's exactly the process of...
Okay, so you say that maybe my friend was mirroring some unconscious fear that I have?
Yeah.
Well, what the dream that I shared with her was to feel that oneness with nature that a lot of visionaries like Eckhart Tolle talk about.
Sure.
Just step out of my mind.
Yeah.
Stop labeling things.
Right.
Feel my oneness with that tree. And
yeah.
so this is how I described it to her. I said to her, I want to be like feel that force of nature. I didn't really know how to describe what I wanted.
Uh-huh.
She thought that was very arrogant. Do you think that's an arrogant, spiritually arrogant thing to do.
I don't think so. I thought you were going to say, when you started, I thought you were going to say you wanted to be like Buddha and be absolutely in bliss every moment of the day, every moment.
Oh, no.
And, no, I don't think that's arrogant at all. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful thing to focus on, and something.
I mean, a lot of good can come out of that state. You feel your oneness with nature, then you feel oneness with other human beings, and you want to help them.
Yeah.
Right. That's where I was coming from, but she interpreted it in a different way, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
which can happen in conversations.
Yeah.
You say something one way, another person interprets it in a different way.
Right.
But a lot of artists have that. They have the ability to step out of their mind.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if J.K. Rowling has that, the ability to, that whole,
I'm sure
that place that the artists are able to channel from.
Mm-hmm.
How do
and it is
access to that? Because I don't really have a writing talent, but I'm envious of people like artists like J.K. Rowling,
right,
and Van Gogh, who can create from that place
right.
that I don't really feel is from their intellect. It's not from their mind.
Oh no, it's not. And we have that ability.
Spirit.
Yeah, exactly. And we all have that ability.
Mm-hmm.
I had a great Zen teacher. He said we can all do Zen. Zen meaning meditation. He said, with every breath, he said, you can just take a breath, and as you exhale, let your thought go for that moment. For that one moment, that's Zen. Then do it again. Zen. Just let your thought go. It's something we all have done. That's when we see a great work of art, or even a beautiful sunset, or a baby's face, whatever it is, there are those times when our thought stops and we really see the wonder of what is. Those are the moments. And every writer that really does worthwhile writing, or every artist, you're right, you get to a place where at times then the thought is not there at all. You're not thinking about what you're doing at all. It's just the pure doingness. And
okay. So how can I have what those people have, like J.K. Rowling? Because that's my dream.
Yes, you already have it. I know you already have it.
Okay.
And that is a wonderful goal to put out there, clearly, to experience more often oneness with what is, and even to let thought go more often. You can't get rid of that inner critic. It's part of your survival mechanism and part of your talent and ability. It's a wonderful thing to have that critical faculty, but there is time to let it go, and you can let it go. I knew one writer that had the image that she locked her inner critic in a closet that was behind her. She sat down to write and said, "Okay, inner critic, in the closet," and she opened the door to the closet and shut the door, and then she'd sit up, and that was her ritual to get rid of that critic, to allow her to write. So you can do it, and you have done it many times. Whenever you've just
but I can't write. I can do it. I can step out of my mind. I can quiet my mind, and I have had glimpses of these moments where I'm not in my mind. I'm present in my body. But the thing about it is the talent, the writing talent.
Well,
it would be really nice to have that.
Yeah, but talent is something you develop, and by doing. And everyone can write. If you can talk, you can write. Okay. And I just see exactly how it is when I sit down and write. Mm-hmm. I write the first sentence, and my inner critic says, "Oh, that's terrible." And I say, "Go away. Don't bug me. I'm dealing with another voice." And I literally feel like they go away beyond my left shoulder, behind me. And then I just let it spill out. And I let a section spill out. Then I literally invite the inner critic back in. I print it out, and then I say, "Okay, let me look at this." And then the inner critic says, "That first sentence just sucks. In fact, the whole first paragraph just sucks. And the second paragraph opens really bad. But here, okay, middle of the second paragraph, that's good. That's where you could start. You don't need this other stuff. Cut this other stuff. And that critic becomes an editor. And all good writers are good editors. As one writer said, writing is rewriting and rewriting and rewriting. So let just slop come out first and then bring in that inner critic. And they love editing. My inner critic loves editing. I love the process. I just got a great book from a friend, and I said, I personally want to edit this just because I enjoy the process so much of letting that inner critic come to the fore and say, this is a little bit over the top, this is better. And especially in fiction, it's amazing how quite often, depending on the writer, but just by cutting something out, it's far more powerful what's left in. So right. you can write, especially if you have the dream or inclination of writing, if you have the fantasy. The other person that asked, that said he didn't know what he wanted to do, that's if you find yourself fantasizing about, I remember reading about Mark Twain's life and thinking, well, he had a pretty good life, He wrote Huckleberry Finn and traveled all around speaking. Had a whole show, kind of. He evolved, and he also made some horrible business investments. So he was in need of a conservative financial money manager. But he certainly, he was a very successful author, and I thought that is a pretty good life, being a successful author. If you dare to dream of that, you can go for it.
All right. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah. I have had such a joy over the past, it's been already 8 full years now that since Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now, since we published that, seeing him being so quiet and such a reluctant promoter, but seeing him coming here to California. He did his first talk when the Power of Now came out in our little local metaphysical bookstore to about 30 people, and we sold like 15 books. And then a couple of years later, 3-4 years later, he came through again, and at that time spoke at the Masonic on Nobile in San Francisco. It's a 3,000-seat venue, and it was almost filled. And most people had paid over $100 a seat. So to see how he remains in total integrity and how he's not a promoter at all, but to just see how a beautifully written book can have such an impact in the world, it's been a wonderful experience. And
hey, Mark, if I may ask you a question.
Sure.
How does that sounds amazing that he can do. I always thought that marketing and promotion are very important, but you're saying that he doesn't really do any promotion.
No, he won't do any radio, for instance.
Wow.
Because he feels the important thing is the silence between words, and on radio you can't have silence. So. And he's not interested in business at all, or the income he's making or anything. He's really not interested.
Yeah, it seems like I think. What do you think? Why is he so successful? I love his book. I've read The Power Now many times, and it's one of my favorite books. And what do you think he's? He seems like a very. If I may finish it, he seems like one of the few people that that is truly enlightened. I don't know if there's anyone out there in the world that can embody enlightenment. Like you said, the Buddha is enlightened. I know he is, and he comes very close to that, or maybe already is. Right?
I think so. He reminds me. I've been fortunate enough to meet 2 Zen teachers too that had a similar quality. They all really enjoyed every moment, were very childlike. I think his success is due to the confluence of several things, some of which were totally beyond his control, beyond him. But the most important things maybe were, first of all, he had a tremendous awakening experience, and then he sat on it and thought about it for 20 years before he wrote his book, and he worked with people, and he waited to write his book. We get so many submissions with a cover letter saying, I had this incredible experience that changed my life 6 months ago, and now here's my 300-page manuscript. And I know without looking, it's all about their story and their problems, and I always write them back and I say, that's great, you had the experience and you wrote what you did. That was a great exercise. Now, write a book addressed to me, telling me what you've learned, teaching me how to make my life better. That's what Eckhart did. He talks about his story in the first page and a half of The Power of Now, and that's it. The rest is directed right to the reader. And he waited 20 years. And then I even asked him why he thought his books were so successful. And he just chuckled and he said, well, he waits to write until every word comes from presence. The woman talking about writing, that's how Eckhart does it. He doesn't write from his mind at all. He sits. And I've noticed dealing with him, even things like writing the captions for the photos he took for this little book we did along with his Findhorn video and CD. He had photos in there. He took weeks to write those captions. He took a whole weekend and sat there, and he didn't write them. We called up, we needed them, and while he hadn't written them yet, he sat there and they didn't come. He wasn't in the right space to write them. And finally, it took him 2 or 3 weeks to write captions for a dozen photos, whatever it was. Well, when those captions finally came, they were the most amazing captions you've ever read, because they weren't just describing a photo, they were the essence of what he knows.
I think that's what the process. I mean, have you read it? There's a book called Flow, right? Have you read that?
I haven't read it, no, but I've seen it.
Yeah, I mean that's what I mean, I haven't actually read it either, but what there was a guy who was speaking about that book, and he said that all the great writers or artists, I mean, they come from that. That's they go to a different place, and it just flows naturally.
Yeah.
And
I absolutely know that in my writing. For me, it's often waking up at 3 a.m. when I have these ideas, and they just keep coming as fast as I can write. And I'm not thinking about it. I'm just hearing them. It's almost like they're being dictated. In writing fiction, you can tell that. I've written a couple of novels too that I haven't published, but the second one I wrote, definitely the story just took over and started telling itself, and I just sat there typing as fast as I could to keep up with it, and characters started saying things I absolutely was surprised at what came out of their mouths, and there definitely is a flow, and almost every fiction writer worth writing knows that experience. And it happens. It happens to most fiction writers, I would say. If you just start writing something and then get out of the way, it'll happen.
So, Mark, you have also written fiction?
Yeah.
So how do you, one of the things that I as a beginning writer, I don't even know if I should start with fiction or nonfiction. Is there a way you can decide, how do you go about selecting?
It has to be whatever your calling is in your heart.
Okay.
And maybe try them both. My fiction kind of snuck, well, both my nonfiction too. The first book I wrote was just a bunch of pages thrown together to give people something concrete after this 4-day seminar I was tricked into leading. And it slowly over time grew more pages, and finally basically was a book. I even looked up book and publish in a dictionary to see if I'd published a book. And that's how that started. And then my fiction started just one night when I was before my wife, I had this girlfriend, and every Friday we'd watch, this was the 80s, we'd watch, what was it, Dallas? Yeah, Dallas. I liked watching Dallas with her. And then she wanted to watch Miami Vice, and I got bored with that. And I remember thinking, I can write a story. I'll go write a story rather than watch Miami Vice. So I sat down to write what I thought was going to be a little short story. And it just grew and grew and grew to about 400 pages.
Wow. So you wrote 400 pages?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, okay. But did you publish it?
No, I haven't yet. I might someday, but definitely nonfiction is where my forte is, because that's what has the impact on people and changes people's lives.
So what was your first nonfiction book?
The first one was called Reunion. It's long out of print.
Wow.
And it was basically a compilation of the exercises that Shakti Gawain and I did in this seminar. And then a few years later, she rewrote much of the material in the same exercises, but did it in her gentle, wonderful way and called it creative visualization. And Reunion sold about 12,000 and then just petered out of print, selling almost nothing. And creative visualization just built and built and built and sold 3 million copies and is still in print.
Yeah, because I have I think it's called the Lazy Guide Way, or I have
the Type Z guide.
Yeah, the Type Z. I have that as an ebook. And
yeah, that was a fun project.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed that. That was my favorite books too, along with Power of Now. I like those.
Great. Maybe one more quick question, and then it's almost time to go. Anyone else want to chime in?
It's very quiet. Nobody.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe that's enough for now then.
So we can just close with a reminder that this call has been recorded and will be posted to the website within 24 hours if anyone wants to listen to it again. And also just a reminder that we're setting the date for the next mentoring program, so check the website for that if you'd like to work with Marc one-on-one. We meet weekly in a small group, and you can do it from anywhere. We do it over the phone. We have a weekly meeting by phone, but you also receive materials, CDs, books. You work in a small peer group, so you have the support of the group as well. And we work over 16 weeks together. So we're looking at March to be starting our next group.
Great. Well, I wish you all a happy and fulfilling and prosperous New Year. And go for your dreams. And I'll be back here the first Wednesday in February. So be well.
Yeah, you too, Marc.
Thank you.
Have a very happy New Year.